I want to talk about something I'm really passionate about, and that's music, specifically OPM. And I hope I can crunch all my ideas into the 1 hour that was given to 19 minutes. Okay, 19 minutes has been given to me. And I understand this is a trap door. If I go past 19 minutes, boom, I just disappear. Anyway, my passion is music. And I want to talk about OPM and how OPM can join the ranks of other nations in that nice world that we call world music. No? And I'd like to start with that. First of all, let's get the slide going. No? I want to make OPM world class. That's what I really want to do. Now, before I get into the topic itself, I want to do some history. I want to share some history with you guys. I was alive in 1951. I was born in 1951. So I lived about almost half of the century of the last century, and alive today with you guys. So I come from a wealth of experience, and the world that I came from and how I met music was very different from how you experience music now. So, yes. Let's talk about the 60s. I call that the age of aspiration. Why? Because Filipino artists mostly aspired to be, we admired American music, and we wanted to sound like Americans, and we wanted to look like Americans and live like Americans. Am I talking of the present? No. Anyway, that was how it was, no? And very interestingly, the world was so different, no? Records sold and played on media were largely foreign, American material. Filipino artists were few. Konting-konti lang talaga. Not like now, where you can find Filipino singers and recording artists everywhere, no? There were two types of audiences, the class and the bakya. Let me explain that. Class meant AB, no? Which loved American music, American bandstand. Before Top 40, it was American bandstand. Then we had the bakya. Why was it called bakya? Because Lamberto Avellana, the director, a movie director, noticed that the people watching his movies were all nakabakya, wooden clogs. In other words, CD sila. Diba? So, may dalawang audience yan. The bakya audience were exposed to the same thing on radio, but they liked the local versions of the American songs. No? So, what were the local 60s recordings like? Folk songs, kundiman. So you had albums like, Pilita Corrales would record something like the best of Bicol music, the best of Ilocano music, the best of this and the best of that. And she has probably a catalog of 50 albums, that kind of thing. Nora Honor would do the same thing, no? And then a few Filipinos would make covers. What were those covers like? They were American songs sung by Filipinos in a Filipino accent. In other words, they were trying to imitate it, pero hindi talaga magaya, no? And who were buying that? The CD people were buying that. Why? Have you ever wondered why? I have a speculation. The AB, educated in nice schools and everything, speak English. I studied here at the Ateneo, and I was caught talking in Tagalog. I was actually fined, right? Yung mga CD, hindi ganon. So they wanted the American dream. They liked the American music, but they wanted a softer version, a more aspirational version. In other words, kaya nilang kantahin, hindi pagtatawanan yung English nila. So that's why the local recordings were like that. They were kind of like, pam-Pilipino talaga. So it's very interesting for me. Sabi ko, if you're gonna copy, why don't you copy completely? So, that was pretty strange to me. But I thought it made sense. And we also lived in a world that time where an artist or a performer aspired to be the blank of the Philippines. In other words, kung sinong sikat sa Amerika, ako yung magiging counterpart. Elvis Presley of the Philippines, Neil Sedaka of the Philippines, Perry Como, and all of that. Names you hardly know. But anyway, that was the big aspiration. In other words, when you were presented, there was a banner. The Elvis Presley of the Philippines will perform tonight. Wow! Exciting, no? It was really a very different world. There were very few original songs being made, no? And it was, the 60s were really like, the class crowd went for the original. And they actually laughed at the covers. Siyempre, pagtatawanan mo, maling English, di ba? One might say, we were enamored with all things American talaga. That was what the 60s were like. we can say that mass followed class. In other words, yung mga masa, same aspiration. Gusto nila yung American life, di ba? Gwapo yung mga artista, mistisa, lahat ng mga idol natin. Ganun ang ginawa nila. Am I talking of the present? Now we go to the 70s, which I call the age of relevance. Wow. From aspiration to relevance, how did that happen? Let me tell you, it was an entirely different mood during that time. Here at the Ateneo, we started to have classes that were really, really strange, and I'll tell you why. Okay. In terms of what you could get as a listener, more FM radios, more television stations with musical formats. So talagang music was really becoming more and more, played a bigger role in life, no? And society was, wow, ang gulo talaga. Turmoil, literally turmoil. And you know, Woodstock happened in America and we wanted our own. We were all rebellious. My hair was actually this long, you know. And my eyes were always red and I talked with the, alam mo, chong. Ibang-iba pang mundo nun. But anyway, try to imagine Ateneo, for example, having classes in Tagalog for physics, for theology, and stuff like that. In the because we're saying we want to be able to experience all of this in our native language. We want to be relevant. We want our knowledge to be passed on to a bigger crowd outside of Ateneo. That was the thing. So it was pretty much wanting to belong to a bigger set. No? So Filipinization, or the wide use of Tagalog, happening in the universities. The zeitgeist, or the spirit of the times, was really talagang palaban. Anti-this, anti-that. We were anti-everything. And it was fashionable to be anti-everything. The hippie movement was so cool. So we all wanted to be hippies. No? And songwriters were young, educated, and non-traditional. Whereas before that, you could approach the few songwriters and they had the formula to make it. No? So, what happened then? Even if my generation grew up with American music, we wanted to write in Filipino because we wanted to reach a bigger market. And we didn't want to be that Elvis Presley of the Philippines anymore. Wala na yun, tapos na yung meme na yun, no? So, class and bakya were once again together. But liking the same material. That was the amazing thing. So you see a Koleala buying, you know, this album, and you see somebody na, you know, medyo mas konti, would buy the same thing. Okay. It was hip to sing in Tagalog. It was great to be original. I mean, wow, it was a time na parang a box was opened and all of this energy came out and we were like, you know, wow, we live in this wonderful world. And it was profitable too. Artists wanted to cut the lucrative bakya market. In other words, malaki talaga yung bakya market, right? So, what they did was they started writing in Filipino. The 70s saw the start of real active concert scene. And for the first time, a Filipino song, no? And there was solid airplay on radio, and for the first time, a Filipino song made it to world music. It was Anak. And Filipinos were winning in festivals everywhere. Haji won in Korea with the song Kay Ganda ng Ating Musika, which was, wow, what a big trip to everybody. But they don't even understand it. But we won. How did that happen? You know, so it was a new idea that was coming in. Okay. In 1978, the brand OPM was born. I was working in a small record company called GEM. We had no foreign label, so we had very little marketing push. No? But we put on our labels OPM, and people started to wonder what it was. And it was original Philippine music. So the brand was created. Now, an interesting thing is in the 70s, we can say that class followed mass. So yung mga songwriters, yung mga nag-aaral sa Ateneo, LaSalle, mga universities, all of a sudden wanted to write in Filipino and they wanted to be known sa masa. So parang bumaliktad ang mundo. Okay, and history, and I'm gonna jump straight to the subject. Okay, are you still with me? Okay. Now, let's look at OPM and the world markets. You know? Almost every Filipino songwriter and artist, including myself, we've always dreamed to make it big abroad and to make it here in the Philippines. APO had made it in the Philippines at a certain point, and we were so confident. And we came up with an English album because we wanted the world to hear us. So we thought, maybe you should write in English. So I remember going we were in LA, I was knocking on doors of different record companies, and they politely get the album and everything. But there was one producer who said, listen to me, you want to make it in LA? Pick a number. You're probably the second million person who wants to make it in LA. If you want us to notice, he said, make it in your own country. Be so big that we will take notice. Can you imagine that? I was totally amazed, no? I was totally amazed. But let me get back to the reason why. Let me get back to what songwriters think. And this is how it goes. We actually, as songwriters in the Philippines, we actually follow the two streams approach, no? Meaning, OPM in English for Filipinos, OPM in Filipino for Filipinos, and OPM in English for the world. And a lot of you still think that way, I think. No? And it seems logical, right? Hindi naman tayo naintindihan. Bakit tayo magtatagalog sa mundo? Di ba? Okay. I asked myself, what is the best strategy? Does it really have to be that? How do the rest of the world do it? And then I looked around and I said, the Brazilians gave so much music, unique styles of music. The Jamaicans did too. No? The Latinos, wow, they've contributed so much. Even Cuba, such a small country, has affected Western music in a major way. No? Australians, Africans, Indonesians, even a country, Bollywood. We laugh at Bollywood, and now it's such a serious, it's a big thing and becoming a serious art form. Ireland. When you think about it, when you think of these countries, you can imagine that they have a theme, right? So when you think of Japan, there's a Japanese theme. When you think of China, there's a Chinese theme. Everybody carries a theme when they present themselves to the world. No? And every nationality that wants to join the world must join the world as themselves. As themselves. Pero sa atin, napaka-importante na we look Western, we talk Western, we make music like it's going to be played in some LA station, you know. Parang that is so important to us, and I think it's about this sort of change things, no. International to me means being local. That's what it means like. In other words, world music is a come-as-you-are party, no. We have not learned anything by coming into the world as English speakers. There's only been 2 songs that have played outside of the Philippines, and that's Anak and Dahil Sa'yo. The better strategy is this, no? Let's make as much OPM as we can, coming from different provinces, different languages, different styles, until we sort of begin to develop a sound that's ourselves. And we actually have that sound already, no? So the idea is, let's experiment. Pilitin natin na talagang mabuhay tayo bilang sarili natin. No? Filipinos are great musicians and singers. We've seen that. But our great musicians and singers do not contribute Filipino culture to the world. They contribute the hardware of being good. What we need is to create the software of Filipino music that can be played all over the world. And we can only do that if we sing, for me, if we sing for ourselves. In other words, if we are confident as Filipinos, it shows the confidence outside. Filipino songs, to me, will be far more interesting, and I've experienced this in my own concerts. When we sing in Filipino and there are foreigners there, they seem to listen more, even if they don't understand the words. When you sing in English, you think you're reaching out, but not really. You actually sound like cliches to them, you know, because you learn everything from LA, from other records. So you think you're so unique, but actually you're not. But when you sing in Tagalog, nakikinig sila talaga. One last anecdote. I remember singing in an international place where I sang Tang Bata Ka Pa. It was a meeting of artists, 78 artists from different parts of the world. And, you know, they were listening and everything, and they clapped. And then after that, an Estonian guy goes to me. I know the secret of your language. I said, what? It's full of letter A's. Batang-bata ka pa at marami ka pang kailangan malaman. So anyway, my point is, you want to make it in the world? Come as a Filipino. Come as you are. That's the World Music Party. Thank you very much.